Hello, Rob here from the Flanagan Homestead and East Fork Christmas Tree Farms. Today I want to do an update on the shearing crew that I hired. Not just the boys that I've hired or my sons and people in hiring and teaching them how to do it, but an actual Christmas tree farming shearing crew. I told you I was going to have them come in here, and they did a good job. We'll talk about that in a minute. And a few other things that are going on the farm right now. Right now I am finishing up a little bit myself with a hedge trimmer on a stick here so I can reach up nice and high. The guys did most of the trees that they could standing. Most of the trees are smaller right now, but even on ladders they can only get up about 10 feet, and I have several 11 and 12 footers. You probably can't tell on the camera, but way back there's a whole section that's probably about 12 feet tall. And so they did the tree up to where they could reach, and I came through and just cleaned it up. I've only actually today worked about an hour and a half, and I finished up the field, so it's not like they left too many, but they did leave some for me. So I've been running the hedge trimmer. As far as the shearing crew, you know, I will definitely do it again. Sorry, I was stumbling there. If they will come out again and work for about the same rate, we will definitely hire them again. I do have the advantage of knowing a lot of young men because I'm a football, basketball, track coach, and I know guys that are willing to put out effort and work hard, but then I have to train them how to do it, and about the time they get really good, they graduate and move on. My sons are all getting married and moving off, and so I'm needing a little bit more help, and I have a lot of other projects going on, so I can't do this all myself. I hope the wind's not so bad that it's too windy. You can pick up the audio on the camera, otherwise I'll have to do this again. But anyway, so I brought them out here, and I'm showing this section of the tree farm right now because it's pretty indicative of how my farm is. We've had more customers than we've had trees, and so we've been replanting, and most of our trees are fairly small like this, and then the ones that are 7-8 feet tall are the ones that were deemed the worst and nobody wanted, and so we're getting those back into shape, but there's not as many. So you can see a few 7-8 footers right here, and then back there we've got some 10, 11, 12 footers, and then I'm standing in the grand firs right now. Right behind the camera is the majority of my farm is noble firs, and we have a lot more over there. But so they came through and worked the trees, and they worked about 6,000 spaces for me. When I say spaces, that's the way my farm is laid out. Between my rows and columns, they worked for me about 6,000 spaces. That includes the very few spaces that aren't replanted. There's no tree there. There's some trees that were just planted interspersed in here, and they didn't need any shearing, so obviously they moved through those really quick. Then we have a lot of these trees that are just about waist high, belt high, and again they took less, but then as you get 7-8 feet tall, and some of them because I didn't have the best crew last year, were a little out of shape, and they had to get them back into shape. But then there's throughout the farm quite a few that get up to 10 feet tall or so, and so they had to work a variety of sizes. But most of them, because our customer base built up faster than we were replanting, most of our trees are shorter than 4 feet tall right now. So they covered a variety of sizes over 6,000 spaces and charged me $1,000. So that worked out to about 16 cents per tree, or 16 cents per spot per tree. Honestly, when I'm training people to come work with me, I think I would have ended up paying a little bit more overall and not having as good a job done. So we will keep in contact with Pedro and his crew, and hopefully they'll do the trees again for me next year. We're going to want them to do a little bit earlier next year. Not that it was too late this year, but my son is getting married on the tree farm July 20th next year, so we want the shearing to be done before the wedding, so everything is just looking awesome at that time. So that's kind of our plan. Like I mentioned, and I hope to do a video with Pedro. He has an 8-man crew that works Christmas trees year-round. I think he has 60,000 of his own trees, and he works several other people's trees, and they're either planting or spraying herbicide or stuff to kill aphids or shearing. They shear a lot of the year, so they're really good at it. I mean, the farms that are getting ready to harvest and the trees that are harvestable on his, he'll shear like between July and now and get those done. But the trees that he knows aren't going to sell this year, he'll leave that because he's got so many trees to do. He'll leave them and then he'll come back, and after he does harvest on his farm and ships them all because he does wholesale, then his crew will go back to shearing and they'll shear the trees that they knew weren't going to sell this year and get those sheared in January and February, and then they'll go back into planting again and just keep the cycle going. So these guys know a lot about Christmas trees, and they have sheared more trees than I have, and so they went through it pretty quickly and they did a pretty good job. Obviously nobody's ever perfect, but for the amount of money I spent, the time I saved, I'm really happy with how this worked out for me. All right, here's one of my frustrations on the farm right now. We did have a great kill on weeds and it kept almost everything out except there's two plants. We got this Queen Anne's lace with all the white on it, and we have thistle that came up after everything was killed and the sterilant wore off. And so although the ground looks mostly bare when you're looking straight down at it, you look across and you can see a lot of white. We got to find a way to get rid of this Queen Anne's lace next year. And it has really stiff stems. If you walk through it, even during harvest in December, we thought we had a snow before harvest last year, and we thought it would knock down all the stems, and the stems were still standing up there and people had to walk through them. We didn't like that. Barry tried to clean things up over here. You can see this looked the same, and you can see right in the rows where there are trees, there's still Queen Anne's lace there, but Barry took a mower and went up and down these rows over here, and it looks a lot better. And he did that on a few sections of the trees, but he was all beat up because the ground with the molehills and whatnot is pretty bumpy, and he was dirtier than all get out. It hasn't rained in forever, so it was really dusty, and he was a dust covered, beat up Christmas tree farmer at the end of that day. Barry also mowed the Queen Anne's lace out of this section of the field. This section of the field, there's 1,200 trees, all the same age right here, and the shearing crew did do these, so you could see this block of 1,200 trees is pretty small, and they were just getting the tips on the bottom out of the way, and they didn't have to do much work here. That's part of the reason the price per tree was really down. If you see the white off in the distance over there, there's 1,200 more trees in that block over there that they did not shear at all, and because they're even a year or two younger yet and didn't need shearing. We'll start that next year. I also mentioned in previous videos we had a young man come and cut handles throughout the entire farm. There was a lot of trees that are growing up out here that needed handles on them, or Basel pruning as most people call it, and he spent 43 hours out here. We paid him $20 an hour, so we owe him $860. He started to do this section as well, but I had him wait until November. I'm going to have him come back in November and do this section because there's quite a few good branches on the base of these trees out here that can be used to build wreaths. And so I'll pay him to cut the handles off, do the basal pruning, and then we'll collect up those branches and make wreaths with them. Okay, now I'm standing back in that section of grand firs that were especially tall. There's some really nice grand firs here that are at least 12 feet tall, many 10 footers, some 12, 13 footers. They're all right back here in this section. Not all of them are right here in this section, but the interesting thing is, we sell from over there, and this is the start of the grand fir section, and the barn where we sell out of and where we greet people is right over there, and this is the far end. We're 4 rows from the end over here. And so what happens is people start to walk down the road, find a tree that they want, and go back. They start to walk down, find a tree, and go back, and this corner gets left. And even though some of these are nice trees, nice color, shape, size, people don't get back here, and so we got to get these to go. But there's some nice trees, and I'm sure they'll sell this year. And we've been only open a couple days for the last few years because we didn't have enough trees, but if some of these big trees are still around, then we'll just stay open another day or two, and people will come back and find them instead of gathering everything up there closer from the start of the farm. But anyway, one of the things I want to talk about, I know there's charts out there, I should just look and find it, but valuation of your trees, where they're at. So I know for insurance, if there's a crop failure and you had insurance or whatnot, they say, you know, a 1-year-old noble is worth this, a 4-year-old noble is worth approximately this much and whatnot. And I was just curious, so what the value of my trees are right now as is in the ground. If I could just figure out 2-footers, 3-footers, 4-footers, and you know, that's not, you can't just take the retail price on what that is, but there's an equation somewhere. But if you guys know what that is, or have seen, there's some charts out there. So I'd like to just kind of figure out what the general value of the trees that I have in the ground are. But you know, generally speaking, you know, it only takes a couple-year-old tree, and they say that's worth $7. You know, even though it's still tiny. You know, and you're not going to sell it yet, but just having it planted and in the ground, your time and investment and a couple years growth is worth $7. Then, you know, there's some that are worth 15 and all the way up to marketable size. Anyway, that's what's going on in the Christmas tree farm here, East Fork Christmas Tree Farms. Thanks for joining me on the Flanagan Homestead, where Christmas trees are my business, teaching including horticulture is my job, and outdoor projects are my passion. Hope to see you again soon. Be blessed, everyone.